It requires Executive Order 203. Those of you that are here and hopefully those of you attending via Zoom can see what is required from a membership standpoint. Sheriff Spike, members of the local sheriff's department, members of the community, nonprofit and faith-based organizations, the Office of the District Attorney. Todd was able to attend an earlier meeting of the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, which we'll talk about for a moment, or in a moment. Other local elected officials and the public defender. Here are 15 items that the reform plan must address. I'm not going to read them to you. You're fully capable of doing that or looking up the executive order online. Ron also will talk about these on an individual basis. But a couple of the keys are use of force, de-escalation training, hotspot policing, and in our case, standards promulgated by the New York State Enforcement Accreditation Program, since Ron does have an accredited organization. What are the consequences for not creating a plan by April 1st? According to the executive order, New York State funding will be reduced or eliminated for Yates County. This slide depicts the state funding received from New York for 2019 and 2020. In 2019, the Sheriff's Office received just over $944,000. In 2020, it received almost $995,000. But it's unclear as to whether the failure to adopt a plan would affect all of Yates County's funding from New York State or just the sheriff's portion. If it were to affect the entirety of New York State funding, it's almost $8 million in 2019 and almost $7 million in 2020. I don't think we want to jeopardize that. Here are the team members, law enforcement, elected and appointed officials, general public. As I said, this is the first general public forum. There will be one more next Wednesday afternoon from starting at 3 o'clock. And then the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council will act as a review and, in essence, a clearinghouse for the plan. On the next slide, it shows the members of the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, and it includes elected officials, members of the Sheriff's Office, County Administrator, District Attorney, Public Defender, and a number of other folks, including the jail minister and a couple of citizens at large, and in one case, a citizen at large, Ray Stewart, fills two hats because he's also a local elected official. We have reached out to other elected and appointed officials. The town supervisor, Ron, has sent out a survey to them, and plus an email went inviting members of town boards and village boards to join these public forums, community organizations, and businesses. The sheriff and I are charged with putting together a plan, working together to prepare the plan. The Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, as I said, would review it and make comments. Other members of the community would also actively provide input towards recommendations, as well as the general public. We ask you, as part of the folks that are here tonight, as well as those listening on Zoom, to join in the process with an open mind, to provide input and feedback. If you happen to encounter somebody who wasn't able to make this meeting but might be able to make next Wednesday's meeting, please encourage them to do so, and keep an eye out on what's going on and educate yourself on policing policies. So what's in the scope of the plan? Again, you can see that community interactions, operational policies and procedures, recruitment, training, transparency, and equality of social justice. We are having public forums, and we've also sent out specific invitations to organizations such as are listed here. What's not in the scope? If one chooses not to participate, unfortunately, there's not much we can do about that. State and federal law enforcement, again, this is a local plan, so there are things that we are not going to be able to handle either within our region or outside our region. And implementation of changes to a number of areas that really this group or this study, this plan will not apply to. And this group can make recommendations but cannot provide funding, nor can it absorb liability if someone within the group does something they shouldn't. What's success going to look like? Well, getting the plan together on time, getting engagement from the entire community, and getting legislative body approval. You can see that the assumptions say that there will be enough time for people to work on it. Certainly, those of us within the county will dedicate the time necessary. We'd ask you in the community, law enforcement community justice coordinating council to make some time and make real recommendations. Also, members of the community, we would ask you to make real recommendations and think about this. And we also hope that any political differences will be put aside. These topics, the list of topics are Ron will talk about. They are also covered in a survey, which I'll talk about in a minute. But these are key things that we would ask you to consider as part of the law enforcement collaborative. We've got a meeting today, stakeholder and general public meetings. I'd like to thank Cornell Cooperative Extension for putting together a survey for us. They will be coordinating it and collecting the data. The link is available on the Yates County website, www.yatescounty.org, as well as a link that is listed here in the slides. Law enforcement will also get a separate survey. That is prepared and will be distributed, as well as jail participants. We're targeting a close date for the survey of February 4th. For those of you here and those listening on Zoom, if you do not want to participate via the internet, we do have hard copies that are available here in the lobby, as well as Connie Hayes in the legislative office will have copies that can be given out. Thank you. Thank you to those of you attending via Zoom and all of those here able to attend tonight. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Ron Spike. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the opportunity to do a presentation this evening regarding this reinventive collaborative. And I want to thank Tim Groth right up front, who's sitting at my left, operating the IT system here. We appreciate his involvement. The fact that this focuses on law enforcement and law enforcement police services, I did bring with me tonight, we have Under Sheriff Howard Davis is here regarding any issues that may come up on policy development. I have Lieutenant Ed Nimitz with me, who's oversees the law enforcement operations. And I have Lieutenant Scott Backer with me, who oversees the Criminal Investigation Division. So there may be something that may be appropriate for them better to answer that they are the practitioners into this issue. Okay, Doug covered part of this purpose, and it's important that we review the community needs that are served by a police agency and evaluate current policies and practices. So we'll spend some time going over what we already do, what we don't do, the fact that we are an accredited agency, you'll hear me mention later, has put us really a step up on policy development and training and administration of those types of issues. As the important date that we're working with here is April 1st, 2021, where the certification has to be into the New York State Division of Budget. So it's important. The presentation that be given tonight, on the left column, you'll see, oops, sorry, I'll go back. What's that? Yeah, whoops. Okay, touchy, sorry. All right, the presentation's on the left column. We'll go over the Office of Sheriff, our mission, some of our associations, the organizational chart, some of the agreements we have in place, the oath of office, hiring process, some of the general crime statistics, issues with mental health, officer wellness, and then we're going to address each one of these reforms that the mandate requires, especially use of force, the different policies that cover each one of those things that are in the list there, de-escalation, hotspots, policing, that type of thing, model policies, and what have you, and some of the contemporary issues. And where are we so far with this? What have we done so far? Yates County does not have a police department, if you will. The county Office of Sheriff does cover law enforcement services for the county under, as far as a local entity goes. It's an autonomous office, which was one of the original offices created when the county was created in 1823. There's a myriad of duties that go along with this office, not only from the administration of police services, but county jail, the 911 communications, the public safety radio towers, court security, civil process, animal control, stop WI, traffic safety program, and administration of the coroners. We're going to be focusing on just law enforcement, which we often refer to as police services. One of the things that's interesting about the Office of Sheriff is that New York State County Law 650 talks about the fact that the sheriff is the conservator of peace within the county, perform additional duties and related duties as prescribed by law and directed by the board of, by our county legislature. There are many state laws, but in 40 of those state laws, the 68 mandated sections within those 40 laws, the word sheriff appears. So there's a myriad of duties from many different laws across the state involving the office. Here's our mission statement. As conservatives of the peace and public safety, we will be responsive with law enforcement and the various other services we provide. We'll do it equally and fairly without regard to race, creed, ethnicity, one's social economic standing. We value an exchange of ideas with all persons, groups, and entities in order to deploy efficiently our resources for the good of the community. That's kind of what we're doing here tonight, and populations we serve. Our objective is to make Yates County a safe place in which to reside, work, visit, and travel. So we have this mission statement is posted at various locations within our headquarters. We have a code of ethics. which recognizes the special trust confidence that's put into with us from our citizens. And we want to perform all these duties according to law and the Constitution, along with being governed by a set of policies. We want to treat people humanely and fairly. And we also want audits of our public funds to be looked at and allocate our resources efficiently. That's very important. And hire according to accepted standards, and strive always to do our best and strive for excellence, and encourage others in the profession to abide by the same code. We have a value statement. I've always said that our most valuable asset is our employees, and we pledge to improve ourselves through continued training and being accountable for our actions. We value human life and dignity, uphold human rights, defend rights, community policing. We operate under those kind of guidelines. We promote education, prevention programs. We certainly value our partnerships, and we have a lot of them with a lot of different entities within the community, and that public trust is very vital. Some of the various connections within the community, I've got several slides that actually demonstrate how we relate to the community quite a bit. Not only doing public presentations, but also we come out with an annual report every year that describes in detail a lot of the activities that we've done. We're dealing with, we have tours of the public safety building. We've got a school resource officer down in the Dundee School, and that has a lot to do with parents and teachers and the youth that are there. We have a lot of e-connections with the community. We have an agency app that we put out a couple of years ago that to show how it interacts with Facebook and Twitter at the same time, and so we can put out information onto that app. You can also go to that app and find out who's in the Yates County Jail. You can go there to find out who the sexual offenders are in the county, and that type of notification service for that. We also operate a system called Nixle, and we put out community alerts over Nixle, text messages and email for various things, road closures and weather-related issues and things like that. We're on the webpage at the County of Yates web, and our Yates County Dispatch Center also has reverse 911, which is also called HyperReach, where we can outbound calls to telephones, wireline phones. And then iPause is a system that allows us to outbound messages to cell phones. It doesn't matter whether as long as you're attached to any tower in Yates County, we can send a signal over your phone. Those are the types of capabilities we've got to put out these alerts, along with our normal press releases that we do daily. In order to help fight crime and promote crime prevention and crime apprehension, we look to take tips. And we've allowed for people to, through this program, to text a tip simply. And then the dispatchers will take that tip, and then we will send that out to law enforcement. Some of those tips on something that's happening right then and there, we'll send it to the Penn Yan Police Department patrol car if they're on duty at the time in the village of Penn Yan, and we'll send it to the state police car if they're closest to wherever the incident is. We can also take a tip over a telephone number there as well. We get these fairly regularly from the public. All our patrol cars carried naloxone or Narcan, as it's often referred to. Being a rural county, sometimes the deputy sheriff is closer to the call than EMS, and we can respond and apply the Narcan. We have found, though, that we had to put multiple applications within our patrol cars because of fentanyl and some of the stuff's much stronger than heroin. It takes multiple doses to bring somebody back around who have OD'd on this type of thing. we often have to administer this. All law enforcement agencies may get involved in this type of thing. And we also assist EMS and with overdoses and investigate them as well. Further connections with the community, we put out weather advisories. We have a DWI impact panel that talks about try to humanize what it's like to be a victim of a DWI event, DWI crash. We put out information on phone scams. We've got a SWEEP detail, which stands for Sheriff's Weekend Alternatives Program, where inmates can do community labor for government or non-for-profits. And we have a slow-moving vehicle safety program where we could do a PowerPoint on that, put out a booklet regarding slow-moving vehicles, regarding the not only horse and buggies, but also the farm equipment and the farm machinery in our agricultural community traveling on our highways. We've been involved with firearm safety, doing partnership with the Scope folks and putting out people who want to get a pistol permit on the safety of revolvers and automatic weapons, what have you. We have a couple of canine dogs assigned to the department, and we put on community demonstrations regarding those demos, we call them. We always have a booth at the county fair and try to interact with the public that way, putting out crime prevention material. We also have a child passenger safety seat program where if you're indigent, we'll not only show you how to put in a car seat and install it, we'll also give you a car seat for free. We've had a great relationship with the area Walmart, who have donated car seats to us to help people that are indigent to have a car seat, that type of thing. The other program we've done, very popular the last couple of years, is active shooter. And we've even done some active shooter prevention awareness in some of our churches as well. We have drug takebacks programs we're involved in with the DEA. There's one in the spring and one in the fall. We've got 3 take-back holders at the one at the Public Safety Building, which is accessible 24/7, and we have one at the Town of Starkey offices and one in the village of Rushville for individuals to deposit unwanted, unused, mostly pills, that type of thing, no longer needed. We've got a couple of canine dogs that are certified in drug detection. We've tried to train all our people about drugs and driving. We've seen an increase regarding the use of drugs and driving a car, as well as with driving while intoxicated. All of our deputy sheriffs on patrol have been trained in A-Ride, and we promote drug driving and try to prevent it from an awareness on different billboards we've done around the county. We've got a drug recognition expert. Our department has the only DRE in the county of Yates, and he often helps not only the sheriff's office, but the local police and the state police if they need a drug recognition expert. He's had the ability and the training to detect if someone's operating under the influence of drugs. The county jail, as an aside here, I think it's important as well that we have FLACRA do substance abuse counseling, and we also promote the peer Vivital program for someone who's been a heroin addict and is getting out of jail. We can get them on the Vivital program to try to prevent a future overdose. We're big in boater safety. Yates County has 65 miles of lakeshore within our 3 Finger Lakes. And so we promote boater safety a lot. We do boater safety training. And so individuals can have a certificate and as well as the operating the PWC, personal watercraft or jet skis, have to have a certificate of training to operate them now. And we're very strict about promoting the wearing of the PFD. We take 0 tolerance attitude on that. If you don't have it on, you're probably going to get a ticket. Other connections with the community, one of our recent billboards we put up is up there on the upper left of the screen at Share the Road, where we're talking about farm equipment, farm tractors, bicycles, as well as horse and buggies to try to give them a break and recognize that their speeds are much, much slower than what you're traveling. Driving drunk or driving stoned. Actually, the billboard down there on the bottom of the screen right is we won a recognition of excellence award from the Governor's Traffic Safety Committee for promoting not driving while under the influence of drugs. And then we also have the Yellow Dot program that if you keep emergency information about you in your glove box and you have a yellow dot on the back window of your car, first responders know to look there to find out what that information is. We also do a lot with our youth. Our school resource officer, who's also our youth officer, also works with the school nurses in all 3 schools that cover our county, or 4 schools, I guess, to see if anyone, a child 9, 10, 11 years old wants to attend the sheriff's summer camp. And so that may not ever have an experience like that. So we're fortunate to have the summer camp actually on Cuca Lake, but it's a great program. Some of the other associations, national associations and others we're affiliated with, not only the State Sheriff's Association, their institute, and national sheriffs, Stop DWI New York, the Yates Substance Abuse Coalition. Lieutenant Backer represents us on that. The Finger Lakes Law Enforcement Training Academy, where we do all our basic training and a lot of specialty training with that group. We have a regional group. Cuca Lake Association, we do a lot with them on boater safety. Clifton Springs Hospital and Clinic, we've developed a new program with them here in the recent months with any person who's considered to be mentally ill and have some issues, maybe you need to get back on the right pills or what have you, we can transport them to that hospital for treatment and exam. The National Child Safety Council, where we promote a lot of safety material for grades K through 6 and disseminate that. We take a lot of businesses donate to that, and we've always appreciated that. We also use some of the policies from the International Association of Chiefs of Police, the New York State Association of Counties, actively involved in their public safety program, and Project Lifesaver for individuals that may want to wander away from home. We can get them into that program with the Office of the Aging, and we've got a good partnership with them. Here's our organizational chart for the entire agency. I'm going to focus on the right side, which is the Law Enforcement Bureau, which is set up by divisions, which is not only the Road Patrol Division, but the Juvenile Division with the Youth Officer, then the Criminal Investigation Division, dealing with fraud and narcotics and cyber type of crime, public assistance fraud, and crime scene technician, evidence and property room, that type of thing. A lot of other special services are involved between our Marine Patrol. We have an underwater dive team because we have 65 miles of lakeshore. We have this search and recovery team, snowmobiles, the drug abuse resistance education program, those types of things and training, aviation support, and fleet services. That a lot of those different things you're seeing in there, a sergeant will be involved in that. One of the things we're very proud of is the fact that we're a New York State accredited law enforcement agency. We were first gained this back in 2005. We were the 111th agency out of 542 at the time to achieve accreditation. And you have assessors who are considered professional in the field, many who we don't know. They come in and spend 2 or 3 days at your agency and interview people, interview officers, and look at all your policies and procedures and to make sure that you're operating according to standards. What I like to say is they want to make sure you walk the talk is what it really comes down to. And because we're an accredited agency, a lot of the reform and a lot of the reinventive collaboration things that involve policy we already have in place, and so that's really a good thing. We operate at least 8 different budgets that the office is responsible for. And the law enforcement division comes under the sheriff budget, which is a little over a $3 million budget that we work with the legislature on every year. We have 3 collective bargaining units attached to the office. They're all affiliated under Council 82, and one for corrections and other employees. And then there's the emergency dispatchers have their own unit, and then the deputy sheriff's unit, which is the one that involves the law enforcement operations. Those contracts, a couple of them are up here this year, and then another one is up in 2024, and I think one of them was extended as well. But at any rate, anybody that we hire to be a law enforcement officer is public officers law. A public officer's law requires that they take an oath of office, and that is the oath of office that every police officer takes, whether you be a patrolman in Penn Yan or a state trooper or a Yates County deputy sheriff. You take an oath to support the Constitution and faithfully discharge your duties, and that's the enforcement of the law. One of the things the collaborative wants to have discussed is that make people understand how the hiring process works to be a county police officer, a deputy sheriff, if you will. The County of Yates and the Office of Sheriff, the sheriff is a co-employer with the County of Yates, and so we have a whole set of processes that we have to go through regarding working with the New York State Civil Service, which is our personnel officer in our county. There's an age issue, unless you've got military experience, and then that can change the age limit. There's a testing that takes place through civil service. One of the challenges with that is that we're often left with a list of maybe many individuals have taken it, but we're left with a list of the top 3, and it's hard to move on from that at times. That is an issue. There's run, push-ups, and setups that are required, minimums that you have to pass, and so we end up with a eligible list. And we end up starting to do background investigations with various members of the agency. And we looking for assessments and qualifications. We want no felony convictions. We have interview teams that are conducted by the Lieutenant Sergeant's Committee, and they try to rank the candidates based on interview. And then we do formal background investigations, interview character references, former employees, employers, that type of thing. Generally, we'll end up making a contingent offer based upon certain criteria. You have to pass a physical fitness exam for workers' comp. There's a minimum eyesight. There's a hearing psychological assessment. And there's fingerprinting for criminal history. And there's also a polygraph exam that we do for anyone who wants to be a deputy sheriff. Once you're hired, you're assigned to the basic police school. It doesn't matter what your education is. You could have a doctorate degree, a master's degree. It doesn't matter. You still have to go to basic training school. There's no way around that. That's a New York State requirement. That takes generally 28 weeks. And there's a whole academically you have to pass. You have to pass a physically test, and you have to be proficient in firearms as well. Any failure of any one of those 3 things will kick you out of the class. Once you graduate from the academy, then you go into a field training officer for 12 weeks, And then there's an assessment made to see if your readiness to go on solo. And you're then on a 78-week period of probation. If you're successful after that 78 weeks, then you're considered a permanent class employee with civil service. As I said, training is mandatory. Because we're accredited, we have to annually do at least 21 hours per employee. That's an absolute requirement that we have to prove that we've done. We normally always exceed that, and so forth. When I talk to you about the basic academy, that's what we call FLIA, which is the Finger Lakes Law Enforcement Academy. It's a regional academy that takes up about 7 different counties in the Finger Lakes area. That class that are taken is 1,067 hours. We usually started in February, and they don't graduate until the end of August, and then they go through another 12 weeks, and often we finally will have somebody that can be an actual resource asset to the patrol by maybe October. So it takes quite a while to go through that training. Here's a couple of examples that they want us to demonstrate some of the examples of some of the courses. I just grabbed a deputy sheriff and I grabbed a sergeant. Deputy Dan McGuigan. This was in 2019. Had 112 hours of training on his file, and Sergeant, I think it was Sergeant Ryan. He had 103 hours, and you can see the various courses that they're involved in. Right down to mental health first aid, which we think is a very important course for them to take to deal with mentally ill individuals and other types of things, annual firearms, what have you. The most recent training we completed was arranged by Lieutenant Nimitz. It's called George Floyd training on use of force, de-escalation, and bias training. Which we felt was very important that we at least start that process out. The Skill Up is something that Yates County puts out for their employees. The right to know, certain preventions, fire safety, that type of thing is very important for the safety of employees, and some of this are state mandated that everyone has to take them type of things. As far as our patrol zones go, we try to set things up in 4 different main zones. Oftentimes, you'll end up with a sergeant just working central, and your zone 1 and 2 will be just one zone itself, and zone 4 will be one zone itself. Normally, we've tried to have at least 3 patrol cars on duty. It seems to be what we need to have minimum. Is it better when we have 4? Yes, it is. When we can count on the state police being on duty, if they're not out of our county and they're available, there are available resource, which, like I say, we have a closest car agreement regarding that, and we'll send the closest car to a call. Here's a slide that the reform addresses that we're supposed to talk about. It has to do with arrests versus race and ethnicity and that type of thing. On the upper left there, that's the criminal arrests for that year of 2019. 295 males and 115 females were arrested with criminal type of charges, 72% versus 28% for a total of 410. As far as the race breaks down, it was the 385 white and 24 blacks. We decided it would be good to know whether that race was Yates County resident or a non-Yates County resident. And as you could see, there were 9 from Yates County and 15 who came from out of Yates County, but into Yates County to do the crime. And ethnicity, 400 non-Hispanics versus 10 of the other. The last census shows Yates County population to be over 25,000. However, I would say that we know for sure that population will sometimes we think it doubles on weekends, quite frankly, but we know it goes up into the 30,000 area easily with the number of non-residents that are here during the summer. And our statistical numbers prove it every time with the activity that's picked up from that. But you can see there are 48.7% were male and 51% were female. That makes up the population in Yates County. And then you compare that to the whites and blacks. And so you've got less than 1% of the black versus, and then you look at the number of arrested. So we're abiding by a fair treatment quite well regarding those statistical information. Now down here on the lower left is the traffic stops, which were just under 4,000 for 2019. And we issued 982 traffic tickets. So what that tells me is that 25% of the stops got a traffic ticket for something, but 75% of the cars that we've stopped for one reason or another either got a warning or a check. And so we think it's important that people understand how those arrest statistics break down. As far as the calls for service goes, for law enforcement calls, how they break down, it's hard to figure out which is something that there are just a variety of numbers that you can look at here, where we break down all of our activity that comes assigned to the sheriff's office out of the dispatch, and et cetera, et cetera. Down here, you can see 30-some burglaries, 2 attempted burglaries. We had 3 actual cause of a burglary in progress, that type of thing. Up here, you've got domestic violence. There are 226 of them, I believe, of domestic violence type calls. That's a 2-car call. Whenever those types of calls come in, you can see the drug overdose numbers, drug possession numbers, that type of thing. Here's one of our more fastest rising crimes, has to do with frauds and welfare fraud and cybercrime fraud, basically. You got larceny, 74 for the year. And so then on the following page, are in alphabetical order, you can see what they are. It's an interesting number here. We investigated was it over 300, if I'm seeing the slide right, of car deer accidents in the county in 1 year. Most of those take place between November 1st and November 15th. Some nights the patrols will have 2 or 3 calls backed up to respond to a car deer accident or collision, if you will. Here's your navigation complaints, 352. And where people called in from living on Lakeside and saw something that was bothersome. Sex offenses, sex offenders that we deal with, so forth. So there's quite a variety of statistical information there that if you're interested. One of the other things the collaborative wants you to discuss is personnel complaints. To have an official personnel complaint, we have a whole form that someone has to fill out and complete and sign, and then we'll do an administrative investigation. We had 2 official complaints in 2019, which were, one was handled as a reprimand, the other was found to be unsubstantiated. We had one in 2020 where the deputies were found to have done nothing wrong at all, but a supervisor regarding a follow-up didn't take place as timely as it should have, and so we issued a reprimand for that. But we do have a very good process in place to handle personnel complaints. And it looks like didn't want to move, Tim. Sorry. Oh, there it goes. There's our disciplinary system. It kind of stages as a progressive type of disciplinary system. A lot of times, sometimes with a police officer, you can do corrective criticism or some verbal counseling to guide him in the right direction. Sometimes we have to do a counseling memo, which we put in writing that we've actually retrained somebody on a particular policy or how they've done something. So it's a part of their training file. As we move on up the disciplinary scale, you get into what's Section 75 of the Civil Service Law that talks about different dispositions as far as the seriousness of what you're dealing with. Reprimands, a fine. You can be suspended without pay for up to 60 days. You can be demoted, or you can actually be terminated from employment. So those are the kinds of punishments that are available if an officer has done something really wrong. Mental health crisis handling and training. This is something that we have put a lot more time into of late. The undersheriff spent a lot of time with this, and then we've gotten several other officers trained within that are in mental health crisis and handling mentally ill persons. But I think it's important to notice what's in red on the screen. In 2019, we had 70 cases of these types of things with people in crisis where more than one deputy had to go to the premise or the location where they were, and someone ended up being taken into custody. Well, in 2020, just last year, it went from 70 to 90. That's a 22% increase over the previous year. So what that says is we're dealing with these things on a weekly basis, and sometimes 2 or 3 a week, depending on what it is. And so there's where this training comes in handy on de-escalation. Communication skills training is very, very relevant when it comes to handling these types of calls. And we have a MAP type of mobile application where we can actually confer from the scene and do a teleconference with a mental health professional. That's a very important part of it. And then we have the CPEP, which stands for Comprehensive Psychiatric Emergency Room Program. And again, they're doing more in-service training of our staff, and that's where our partnership with Clifton Springs Hospital has come into play. Safety and wellness of our, see if I can go back. Safety and wellness is something we've always thought was very important. We've struck an agreement with an employee assistance program. I've always appreciated the fact that the legislature has funded this program. And so we've got this agreement with this company where officers can go through counseling and talk about these kind of issues. We've also got a setup with another provider for a mass casualty incident, and any first responder, any dispatcher, any deputy sheriff, any police officer in the county, any volunteer fireman through the contract that we have can also go through this debriefing, if you will. And so we've had the fire service has got some people trained to help with this as well. And so we're trying to prevent officer suicide. Is just a terrible thing that we don't want to happen. And so we're trying to be very proactive with all these types of issues and peer counseling and what have you. And so you can see what the other things that are important. I mean, we work shift work. We work 24/7, and some people end up working nights a lot, or they alternate back and forth. And so sleep is important, and the support of a family, the chaplain services, the multi-faith-based folks. Thank them very much for their help and their work in the jail as well, and stress management training. So we've tried to put all these things in place to keep our people healthy. Some of the equipment, one of the things within the collaborative is the readiness on different things, not only the patrol cars, but we have body cameras that we wear, and we also have a conductive energy device that we have, which they carry on their belt. It's also called a taser, which is what you might be familiar with. It's a non-lethal form of force. And then the body camera is up here. We have other equipment for emergency field-based operations. The DWI patrols, the deputies in his car with his laptop computer, his mobile office, if you will. And they even have a printer in there. And we utilize the services of county IT to help us with that all the time. We have forensic services, fingerprinting and other types of forensics we can do. And we've got equipment to deal with those types of things, undercover type of equipment. The Marine Patrol, snowmobiles. Each car has a ballistic helmet and a shield in it. We got on a grant in the event we would ever need something like that. The firearms, they carry a 40 caliber Smith & Wesson a weapon, and each patrol car has an AR-15 rifle. We found ourselves several years ago with an individual that was barricaded. He had a rifle, we didn't, and so he could reach out and shoot at us. And so we now the sergeants have shotguns, but the deputies carry the rifle right now in the event we need it. We've got a drone type of instrument that works very well to documenting accident reconstruction. We can go up above the scene. It saves a ton of money with not calling out a helicopter to do that aerial photography. Search for missing persons. We've used it to find growing marijuana in cornfields and different applications like that to document crime scenes from up above. And we've got 3 different certified FAA operators for that for the instrument. It comes in very handy. Some of the other special units we have, we're part of a fire investigation team for the county, the Canine unit, bicycle safety. By the way, with bicycle safety, we know that a lot of our old order Mennonite families ride bicycles. There are 23 schools affiliated with Yates County for the Mennonite population, and through outreach and collaboration with them, Lieutenant Nimitz there has been able to get into with our bike operator safeties courses into 18 of those schools, and so we've done really well with preventing bicycle accidents because of that with that population. Snowmobile, we have a couple of those ready to go in the wintertime when there's snow for various reasons. We have a CERT team, which stands for Corrections Emergency Response Team. In case we have a disturbance or in the jail, or we've got do a cell extraction or somebody doesn't want to move. It's not always peaceful in jail. And sometimes we have to activate these trained correction officers to go in and bring peace to a situation. We've got our accident investigation unit. There's a picture of them on the bridge down on 14 by Dresden, and it's called a total station. It does measurements, and it documents the scene very well for forensic evidence later and what have you. We've got an underwater dive team to do recovery. It's not a rescue team. Branchport Fire Department's got a rescue team. This is a search and recovery team, oftentimes to find a drowned body or to find evidence or stolen property that's been discarded in a pond or what have you. And so they've got a whole unit there for that. We've got a side scan sonar, also looking to look into the depths of the lake to find locate a body or other property. We've got a video camera, video ray type of thing that can go down under the water, and we've got operators for that. By the way, these things are gotten on grants over the years. The dive team working on in a pond drowning. We've got what's called a UTV that we loan out to the Yates County Highway Department every late fall to help them put up snow fence. So we have kind of a partnership there where we share our equipment. We have the Eddie Eagle program that we do in schools that we promote with scope on firearm safety, the DARE program that we do, the youth go into the summer camp, and the child passenger safety seat program I mentioned. On the far right, you'll see the speed trailer, which we try to take out, and it documents speeds, times of day, and then we can, if there's a particular time of day, we can then send a patrol out to try to catch that regular speeder type of thing. Firearms training, firearms range, and our sweep detail. Just some of the special services. Okay, I said before, the fact that we're an accredited agency has helped us quite a bit to be already well prepared for these Executive Order 203 guidelines. And so let's go through them, and we'll mention them as we go along. The first one on the list was evidence-based policing. Now, where you see where we've said LE something, that's law enforcement, 7-96, or D is a directive. What that means is we've got a directive to staff on what the policy is on that, or we've got a general order. All directives eventually turn into a general order, but that's how we do business, and we put that out. So and many times before we issue a general order or directive like that, we'll one of the things that I've found has been very helpful is that I let the union look at it first to see if they've got any issues with it, and so we can discuss those issues if they do, and bring them in on whatever this guidance should be, and that's worked out very well over the years. And so we've got different things that we've based upon evidence based policing on like our policy on chokeholds, neck restraints, and that type of thing. Crime prevention. It helps us with policy development. We can look at what other policies that maybe some other agencies have had and evaluate them to help with our decision making to form that policy if it's been proven. And so we find all those things very important. We use that type of criteria for the non-lethal weapons, the OC spray, taser stuff, active shooter stuff, search and seizure, and that type of thing. Helps us with those policy developments. Implicit bias awareness, very important in law enforcement work that we understand this behavior, and that there's a duty to intercede if one of our officers is not being appropriate, that they can be interceded by another one to stop that type of thing. We haven't really had any problems with bias and our relations with the communities, but it's something we think is a fluid situation that we've done some training on, and we want to do more training. That's in the planning stages for bias type of situations. We think it's important. Procedural justice is one of the other requirements. I've always looked at procedural justice very simply as police officer or peace officer, whichever hat he's wearing or he or she is wearing at the time. That may sound simplistic, but there's a big difference there. And it talks about fairness. It talks about listening to the individual you're interacting with, so they've got a voice, to make sure you're transparent and that you're impartial. Those are the principles, or the four pillars, if you will. We have a LA 295, a code of conduct, which addresses those things. And one of the things we think we can even enhance this training. We've got a sergeant lined up to attend training down in the Southern Tier to be a train-to-trainer type of instruction to teach this topic in even more enhancement, if you will. And so we expect to have that done in February to do more training in that direction. We've done some, but we want to do more. Sorry, she jumped on me, sorry. All right, de-escalation training and practices. The crisis intervention team gets involved in this when you're especially dealing with a mental health issue. A lot of the deputies have had what's called mental health first aid, and that certainly has helped. The basic police course now spends a lot of hours on crisis intervention skills. It talks about professional communications, which is a lot of de-escalation, if you will. And so those basic skills on how to intervene and how to listen and try to de-escalate are very important. We've looked at some of our policy development from a company called Lexipol and different other model policies. And so we think we're on top of that pretty well. One of the things that that we can actually train real time, if you will, or maybe that's not the right word, reality based training or scenario based training is de-escalation, and so that you can actually observe an officer learn by doing under that type of stress and working those things out. So we've done that type of training. We're very fortunate in the Finger Lakes area of New York State. A member of our department, Sergeant Ryan, has taught many other agency members within the Finger Lakes on how to be RBT instructors, reality-based training. He does an excellent job with it, and so therefore he spent a lot of time with our different training scenarios we've done, and the things that we've done is taken a citizen's complaint, vehicle stops, dealing with mental health emergencies, responding to different situations, that type of thing, and officer safety type of situations you could find yourself in. So we do practice that. Law Enforcement Assisted Division programs called LEAD came out of Seattle, Washington. That's where it all started. It really means let everyone advance with dignity. That's what it means. And so what can we demonstrate with what programs that we may have? We've got the CODI program through FLACRA. We got drug court program. These are different diversions, if you will. DEA drug take back, the DA's traffic diversion program, Youth Explorer like program, alternatives to incarceration, and the Center for Dispute Settlement, that type of thing. It's hard to have a lot of these types of services without it turning into a budget issue as an unfunded mandate, but we think we meet that criteria pretty well with programs that we have. Restorative justice is another one of the criteria that's required. And once again, it's focusing on however a police officer handles a situation can maybe cause more harm than it can resolve the situation. So it's all about sometimes, depending upon the situation you're involved in, you let the participant take part in the resolution of whatever the issue is. And so we've tried to demonstrate this with our Victims Impact Panel, collaborations with other agencies, with probation, with the local courts, the DA's office, the public defender's office, the Penny and Police, with a whole focus on it. Kind of takes a community to deal with these type of things. I was always told from the minute I was a young kid that there can be justice without bars. And some people say, what does that mean? Well, not every situation requires that someone be taken into custody and arrested and taken to jail. Maybe there's another way. Maybe there's a way that there can be a problem can be resolved through communications and discussions, or maybe a warning or negotiate a compromise. There's a problem, and what can we do to fix the problem? Yeah, maybe it's an environmental issue. Maybe it's something else. But we try to impress upon all of our members to use discretion and try to remember that our mission is to conserve the peace. And however we can. So that's the whole basis of restorative justice. that they're trying to have more agencies practice. Community-based outreach, conflict resolution. Again, we got different prevention programs. We have policies on that, dealing with civic organizations, doing presentations, attend special meetings. I try to get out to town boards once a year to address matters where there may be conflict or other issues that might need solving, or just simple issues that a town board might not be too sure what to do with. We see ourselves as kind of every township's police department, if you will, and so forth. And so we've got the Substance Abuse Coalition. The Keuka Park Association is very similar to a neighborhood watch program. Myself and Lieutenant Nimitz have attended many of their meetings and try to work on things like that. The Keuka Lake Association, we attend every year with Steuben County. We talk about the lake and navigation issues. Council of Churches are such a great asset to us, even with our jail ministry program and other services. Our take back, we have a dark house system, a property check. Many individuals that go to Florida or go south for the year will want to be on our dark house list. And then the deputies will actually, on patrol, will swing by and make sure that everything is okay. And people really appreciate that. Again, the pause forward complaints, they all go to the county attorney and myself, and we try to assign them to either deputies or code enforcement officers or public health, or whatever the resolve is, type of thing. And of course, scope with firearms, that type of thing. And the basic course for police officers has done a lot to improve its training to dealing with persons with disabilities, especially autism. Problem-oriented policing, or what they call hotspot policing. There again, we're participating in various projects within the community. STEP is Strategic Traffic Enforcement Program. We've got a traffic safety grant that we just got that'll start this fall. That we've learned that looking at all of our statistical or evidence-based process, that the majority of collisions on state highways is Route 14A. And that the majority of our collisions on a county road is Preemption Road. And so according to those stats, we were able to get some overtime grant monies to starting this fall to address those types of things and do speed enforcement, because the majority of them were speed related when there was a crash. So we're happy about that. Focused deterrence. There was a lot of challenge for law enforcement with this patches the first of last year of bail reform, discovery reform. It's really difficult to implement a lot of strategies to identify the causes of crime reduction. We continue to think about that. We've thought that maybe our Substance Abuse Coalition involvement, our DWI with the drug court involvement, our relationship with the Council of Alcoholism and FLACRA and their school-based counselors that the Stop DWI program pays for. Jail parenting class, we think might be a deterrent to reduce domestic violence. The DARE program and both Dundee and Marcus Whitman schools, and of course the sex offender registry, which we operate. So we think that's important because we operate a program called Offender Watch. And through Offender Watch, the undersheriff oversees that program. There are notifications can be done. You can sign up to be told if a sex offender moves into your address area, things like that. Crime prevention through environmental design. There again, we go back to our LE 1097 policy, all about community relations. We'll gladly do a security check of a business, or make suggestions, or, hey, improve your lighting, take down these bushes. There was just one the other day that I did myself, where I had them cut the top out of a tree so that the light would be much better at night when people were there when it's dark out. Surveillance cameras, parking lot conditions, different things like that to reduce crime or reduce burglary. Oftentimes I'm contacted by a planning board where they're talking about a building project and they want some information regarding security or lighting or traffic issues on the egress, that type of thing. Get involved in that. And so we've got different people trained as far as traffic safety goes that can deal with those things. Violence prevention and reduction interventions. Again, we think our school resource office program helps with that. The DARE program helps with that. We're very responsive with all our school districts, as well as Cuca College, in doing safety planning. And we do safety planning for the courthouse and for the county office building, workplace violence type of training, anger management at the jail, domestic violence initiatives, that type of thing, active shooter. All of these things are ways to interact with the community to try to prevent violence. And then one of the things that the governor's reform talks about is that we all need to operate off model policies that the Police Training Council for the state has developed. And I can tell you that every one of our policies has been modeled off these 17 model policies, which are currently available, that basically the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services and the governor, for that matter, has put his stamp of approval on as to a contemporary standard on a way that you need to operate. And the big ones is this use of force is very, very fluid. You know, technology and laws that are changing can change that on a regular basis. The use of the taser, the proper way. And let me just say, I think I mentioned earlier that we've just we've got new body cameras and we've got new tasers. One of the things that we did was that we implemented a next step generation of technology. If a deputy sheriff removes his taser from the holster or removes his firearm from its holster, there's a signal that's sent from the holster to the body camera and it automatically turns it on. Many times officers that have body camera on forget to turn them on in the excitement of whatever they're facing. And so we've got it set up that they'll go on automatically. And we think that's an improvement. But anyways, we have policies that address we've used these model policies to address all of our issues. And then how did we address some of the new laws of 2020? You had this anti-chokehold act, which came out. And so we developed a directive back in June of last year, banning chokeholds in our training. And our defensive tactics instructors have removed it from the lesson plans, and that's been done. Civil action regarding the police officer regarding members of the protected class, the civil rights law. We've done training on that, on hate crimes. The right to monitor. We've got policies that if somebody's got a camera and they're videotaping you, which we see that happen quite often, we can't stop them from that. The citizen has a right, as long as they have a right to be where they are, to videotape us. And if we discharge a weapon or use force, then we've got policy now that addresses the reporting of that and the paperwork that you have to fill out. The civil rights law, whenever you're responding to a mental or medical health issue, the new laws say that you've got to provide medical or mental help for these individuals if they require it. So we've got policy that addresses those things. As far as the duty to report misconduct, duty to report excessive use of force, that's that duty to kind of intercede, if you will. Type of thing. We've got policies in place on that that we put into place. The body-worn camera, the state passed that they want the state police to have body-worn cameras. They've never had them before. Effective April 1 of this year, we're out in front of that, and we've already done that. And 50A, some people have heard about that. Civil rights law, that got repealed. It used to say that if someone wanted to look at a police officer or a correction officer's personnel file, then they had to get a court order to look at it. By repealing the law, now it's all a part of the FOIL process where you can file a freedom of information to look at that personnel file. So we have policy in place to deal with that. Some of the, as I wind down, some of the contemporary issues that we've seen out there that we often deal with is sometimes we're challenged by a 45-year-old building where our headquarters are, the jail is. The criminal justice reforms and legislation continually may change policies. We have to stay on top of that. Use of force is such a fluid thing. Again, laws can change that, different training standards. Drugs, we continue to be dogged on trying to people that are driving while under intoxication, driving while under ability of drug, impaired by drugs, or selling drugs, and mental ill issues, coronavirus issues still there, COVID issues, stay on mission, recruitment and retention. There again, the rule of three from civil service is very hampering to us sometimes. I know that statewide there's a lot of advocacy. In fact, I've spent quite a bit of time on the phone last week with the New York State Association of Counties and helped them write a resolution to try to get civil service to expand they have a band score of 5. They won't let any more than a spread of 5. And we're trying to get the band increased to 10. And so they're hoping for them to consider that. And of course, the unsafe speed issue, we as ever parent, which has causes a lot of our traffic accidents, traffic collisions. I try not to use that word accident. And car deer collisions and the slow moving vehicle issues. Some of the things we deal with on a regular basis. I put this on here just because I think it's interesting. I've always loved history. But here you have, I caught this from Bill Bratton, who's a retired police commissioner, said this the other day about Sir Robert Peel's 9 principles of policing that he come out with in 1829. And if you look at those today, my gosh, a lot of that stuff is all within this reform on the public approval, cooperating with the public, cooperation, police respect, public respect the public, use of force. And so I just think it's kind of an interesting thing that what was then can apply today as well. And then, so what have we done since this EO 203 thing came out last summer? What's our progress so far? We talked about a pathway forward, which is work between the legislature chairman and myself and our staff and his folks, county administrator and chairman of our public safety committee, about how we go forward with this. He's done a lot of research on what other areas have done. I participated, actually spoke at a New York State Chiefs of Police conference on this very topic. Developed this PowerPoint program. We've already done a presentation of this to the CJCC group. We've updated our use of force policy, consistent with all the new laws. We've done in-service training on George Floyd, as I mentioned. Policy development and training to address new legislation affecting policing. We've done that, as I've demonstrated. We've issued and trained on new Axon body cameras, auto-on feature, the same with the conductive energy devices. We got a sergeant registered for that train-the-trainer on procedural justice. That'll take place in the Southern Tier next month. Coming out with an agency creed, which is going to basically say, I want our officers to have a guardian mindship, not a mindship that they're a warrior. I don't see that as a problem, but yet I think it's important that it's an important creed that we're looked upon as guardians of the community. Our mission says we'll conserve the peace, and it's important. And so we issued a new policy entitled Equity and Fairness, which talks about that bias and de-escalation and different policing to be just and be transparent. We've sent letters to municipalities on the survey. The county's put together a community survey and so forth. And for my final slide we see ourselves as one of many community partners, and we have relationships and MOUs and various different relationships with many entities within the community, and we appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And thank you, Sheriff. I saw during the presentation that a number of hands had been raised on Zoom. Can you collect those, Tim, or open the mics for? No, I'd rather do the Zoom first and then do the folks here.
Okay.
Please.
Okay. So the first question was from an anonymous user. What is the criteria for dispatching Canine?
Lieutenant Nimitz, you want to take that question? Lieutenant Nimitz oversees the Canine. I think this mic right there will work for you. Oversees that unit, and I'll let him handle it.
So generally, the criteria.
Oh, sorry.
So to answer the question about Canine, our Canine units are dual purpose, meaning that they are used for drug detection as well as tracking of persons or locating of articles. So depending on the situation that we have out on the scene, if we had a person, for example, who fled the scene of a motor vehicle accident or a traffic stop, or was wanted at large and fled a car, the sergeant that is working on that particular shift would determine the need for a canine, would request one, and one would be sent to the scene to assist. We also get called for article searches, pieces of property that might have been lost, or a part of a evidentiary component of a crime that needs to be located. We utilize the canines for missing persons in addition to the apprehension of individuals. We've responded to, for example, a youth that has wandered from home. We're able to use the scent of the individual's clothing and utilize the dog or canine unit to track and help to locate the missing person. I hope that answers your question.
Thanks, Lieutenant.
Okay. Our second question is from Arlene Wilson. Is the complaint form available online?
Under Sheriff? He oversees the personnel complaint process. You want to take that?
Certainly. Currently, it is not published online. However, if you wish to make a complaint or a comment about a deputy, you can simply call the dispatch center and ask to speak to the supervisor, who will in turn contact you, and you can discuss the information with them, and then he or she will bring the form to you to be signed. We anticipate in the very near future of establishing a comment or complaint section on our webpage.
Thank you.
Okay. Next question from Alex. Would you be able to provide details about how you undertake implicit bias training and what you have planned in this regard?
Do you want to talk about that George Floyd training, Lieutenant? That was the start of the implicit bias.
Yes, so we have a couple of different things in mind as far as implicit bias. A lot of times what we will do is observe an action, or we will have training in response to something that may have been perceived to have gone wrong, such as the George Floyd incident. We were able to use videos of that instance and critique how we would have done things maybe differently if we were placed in the same situation, like we did with the George Floyd review. Additionally, we're constantly looking over trainings that other agencies are doing in regards to certain topics like implicit bias, and we will reach out to them and utilize the same formats that they've had success with. And we're constantly reviewing these processes toward in-service training for our officers.
Yeah, thank you, Lieutenant. Let me just add too that if you remember, I pointed out that we have a well-known instructor on reality-based training, and one of the situations that we want to create is we want to create a scenario-based situation that we put our officers in to make sure that bias is correct, and that we don't just take a position that's wrong, and so we think it's very important to do a scenario-based type of exercise to play off of the Floyd training we've already done, but it's something that it's very important.
Okay, as we're answering questions and prior to going to the in-house public, if there are others on the Zoom that have any questions, you can just go ahead and put that question in the Q&A, and I will get to you in order of the questions. I have another one from Arlene Wilson. Can the body camera auto turn on switch be manually overridden?
Let Lieutenant Backer address that.
The only time that it can be overridden is if the weapon is drawn or your conductive energy device is drawn, and it's not only your camera, it's any other officer's cameras that's within range. But the administration or the dispatch center can't turn a deputy's camera on remotely. We have the capability to view the camera if the camera is already on, but the deputy would have to activate the camera either through the automatic on feature from the weapons or the manual turning it on. And that's the only time the communications division can view it. They can't turn it on remotely or listen in remotely without the deputy knowing.
It seemed, Lieutenant, that the question was, if it's been turned on automatically by drawing a weapon, can it be turned off by the officer?
It can, but our policy addresses that it would have to be documented why it was shut off and the conditions.
Yeah, you could be in trouble with our general orders and be subject to disciplinary action if that was to occur. And I believe if what Lieutenant Becker was saying too is that if you have two officers at the same event and one of them, say, pulls one of the weapons from its holster, that it
Correct.
activates both. It activates all the cameras.
Yes, any camera in the area.
Okay, and our next question is from Diane Lovejoy. Will you be putting this slide presentation online for the public to review prior to completing the survey?
There's no reason we can't, is there?
There's probably no reason we can't.
No, the slide presentation is fairly large, so the only downfall would be the size of it downloading to the other side, but it is possible, yes.
Okay.
That is the end of questions. Again, if anybody online would like to ask a question, please put it in the Q&A section on your toolbar, and we'll circle back around if there's any further questions online. But at this point, we can do it internal.
Does anyone in the audience have any questions? Mark, would you mind coming to the microphone? It doesn't broadcast out on Zoom unless you are talking over a microphone.
So thank you, Mark Moon. I guess a question I have is, as you hold these sessions that are available to the public, for instance, we had an anonymous question. And while I think everybody should be able to ask a question, I also think it's important that people identify themselves as Yates County taxpayers or Yates County residents. So at any of these meetings that you hold or over the Zoom forum, is there any way that people can identify themselves as where they live? Just to figure out where they're from. And
I mean, we could certainly ask folks that are on Zoom to put into the Q&A where they live if they're not Yates County residents, but there's no real way to mandate that, Mark.
We can, there are feature sets where you can mandate registration to the Zoom meetings so that they'd even have to register, but whether or not they actually type in, legitimate, I have no way of proving or disproving whether what they typed in is legit. So I have no verification process for that, but we could go one of two ways in the future. Either requiring registration, or when the person asks the question, again, we can have them respond verbally online as to who they are and where they live.
Okay. Yeah, we can certainly do that for questions.
so I don't know if that's the answer or not. I would just hold more faith and stock in the public's comments if we knew they were Yates County residents. Another question I had was, recently over this last year, we've had an incident involving the Mennonite community. I've got a lot of respect for the Mennonite community. I think the Sheriff's Department, law enforcement has a terrific reputation, and their outreach with the community is done very appropriately and respectfully. My question relating to the Mennonite community is, do we make that same outreach to Mennonite leaders in our community? We seem to have good programs in place for various incidences or relating to specific people in specific situations. Is there any way we can create some program that would allow for an alternative to incarceration if that involves a member of the Mennonite community?
I'd have to take a look at that. The Director of Probation is in charge of alternatives to incarceration programs for the county. The only, we call that ATI. The only program we have like that is that sweep program where an inmate is sentenced to jail intermittently on weekends. And so they report Saturdays and Sundays, and then we would go out and do work at a government site or a non-for-profit site with them. Whether you're looking for something specific for the Mennonite community, if there was to be a Mennonite offender?
Correct.
Sheriff, Sharon Dawes is on the line as an attendee. Tim could probably unmute her if she might have an answer to that.
Okay, stand by. And Sharon, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. We don't have a specific program designed to the Mennonite community. But certainly when we're looking at alternatives to incarceration, we're looking at what's appropriate for each individual, not if just a Mennonite, but just the individual itself. We look at what alternatives to incarceration we can use depending on the population we're dealing with.
That would be part of your pre-sentence investigation, correct, Sharon?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Would anyone else here wish to make any comments or questions? All right, Mr. Groth, do you have anyone else that is asking the additional questions?
I do not see any additional questions at this point.
I do have a question.
Oh, okay.
It's Carly. And you talked about a survey at the beginning, and I'm just wondering if you could review one more time how the public can access that, and a little bit of information, a little bit more information on that, so that we can encourage our community to be involved in this survey.
Sure, it's available on the Yates County website, www.yatescounty.org. And actually, Tim Groth has arranged for it to be on a banner at the very top, so it's right on the first page of the county website. It's also, I believe, on the county Facebook page, and the sheriff and I have discussed it being on the sheriff's page as well as their Facebook page, and I believe it's there. Correct?
Yes, I think you put it on today.
Okay.
There are also hard copies available in Connie's office. If someone would like to fill that out and then return it, Connie can enter the data into the database.
Thank you.
No, thank you, Carly. Well, hearing nothing else, then I thank everyone for participating on Zoom. I thank Tim Groth, for setting this up. Appreciate your assistance, and also everyone for attending. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.